Oh my, look! An Odroid! Hello there gamers, it's time for one of my most requested videos. This is the Odroid-Go. I'm going to break this into 3 sections. Don't worry, they'll all be in this video. First part will be assembly. The second part will be a general look over of the device. And of course the third will be some gameplay.
Not necessarily in that order.
I'll have a verdict too.
Meatbag opinions don't matter.
For those of you who don't know, the Odroid-Go is a game player that plays the NES, the Game Boy, and the Game Boy Color. Future Rob here, just correcting away. The Odroid-Go does support Nintendo, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Sega Master System, Game Gear, and Colecovision. Also, you can add Atari 2600 and 7800 games. I'll show you that later. So let's see how this stacks up. First, let's look at what's inside this box. Mecha-hoo! As good a way to open it as any. Anywho, here we have some basic installation instructions. This is after it's built. This is how to get things onto the SD card and into the system. We have a USB cable. That is a micro to regular. And then of course we have all these pieces we need to assemble, and that's what we're going to get to pretty much right away now. Don't forget the battery. And, sorry, don't forget the battery. There we go. And for goodness sake, don't eat the desiccant. The first step is taking this window and attaching it to the device cover. This is the front of the device, of course, that's where the window would go. We're going to remove the tape from the edge. This should have came across. This should have all came off. Here we go. I had a problem where the tape stuck onto the window and it would not come off, so had to play with it a little bit. So note that, you might run into that. Not sure. I'm super unlucky with this kind of stuff, so might have just been me. Alright, be very careful with this. Don't crack it. You may want to really quick just clean this up after you install it to get all the fingerprints off, especially on this side, because you don't want any fingerprints on the inside. This is step 2, installing the screen. Now the first thing I want you to note is this is face down. Here's the screen. I'm going to peel up the tape, and now I'm not going to touch the screen again. Carefully, and I mean carefully, place the screen in here. There's 4 little snaps, and you do not want to press this so hard that it breaks, so be very careful about how much pressure you put on it. I'm going to zoom in a little bit and show you. There's those 4 little snaps. See how I just snapped it in? One thing I want to show you is make absolutely sure this is all the way in. I didn't have mine all the way in. I noticed it right away, but just note there's a little end stop here and you want to make sure it fits in that end stop. Looks pretty good. Alright, next I'll be putting in the play buttons. That's the D-pad right here and the A and B button. You should not be able to put the A and B button in wrong, so this should be pretty easy. Just kind of line it up. Drop it in. Here, I'm going to get a little bit closer to show you this one. You see how these just line up? A little bit closer. Drop it in. D-pad, same thing. See how it's got a little lock? So I almost put it in there wrong, but that's really impossible. There you go. There's a little key. Don't throw this out. The on-off switch is here. Let's get all these rubber contacts in here. This is for the D-pad. Now you can look and see there's little tabs that'll hold that in. Let's put the buttons in wrong. Flip it. There we go. Little hole on top, big hole on the bottom. Let's go put these guys in too. Here we go. Step complete. Next, we're going to put in the motherboard. Notice that I have the front side face down. And I'm going to just set this guy in over here. I have it on bubble wrap so that I've got a little bit of play for the buttons to move around in case they need to. Here we go. We'll start putting some screws in. You'll need to install 4 screws. Here, 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 and here. It's pretty easy. Notice that I'm not pressing down very hard on the board. You don't want to break it. This would be a good time to test your buttons. Make sure they work. These seem okay. Let's connect the screen to the main board. Just slide it in carefully. And lock this bad boy down by sliding it back. Make sure this guy right here is flush against the white part. Next, we install the speaker. I think it's going to be easier to wrap it as shown if I connect it first and then just kind of guide it around. They show it wrapped like this, but from this end, here we go, like this. Apparently that keeps the wires down so they don't interfere with putting on the back. They don't seem to stay like they show though. Now I'll do the same thing with the battery. I think that these cables are shorter than what they originally included when they wrote the instructions. I think that's probably part of my problem with actually getting it to match what they showed. This is considerably shorter than what I see in that photo. So my placement is the same as they show in the diagram, but my wiring looks a little bit different. I don't think that looks too bad, so I'm going to leave it that way. Alright, I want you to look really close at this positioning. I'm going to turn this a little bit. Notice how it's inside the plastic case. It took me a little bit to figure out exactly where this goes, but that is where the power switch sits. They don't show you that in the instructions, so you kind of are left to guess it. But that's where it sits, and then the top will slide on, thusly locking it down. Right there. Now you can just put the rest of the screws in. Take one last check at this right back here where the wires are. Make sure none of them are smushed. None of them are, so I can continue. Alright, real quick, I'm going to confirm I got a screw here, got a screw here, got a screw here, 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 and here. Looks pretty good. Now, if I power it up, I should get an error indicating that I should insert an SD card, and I do. Alright, so let's talk about hardware and appearance. Well, I like the early 2000s awesomeness of it. That clear really does look nice. The screen is good and bright, very clear. I like that. Sound is pretty good out of it, thanks to them mounting the speaker in the front, which shows that they actually cared a little bit. A lot of these devices have them mounted in the back and it muffles the sound. The D-pad and buttons work absolutely great. I really like these. They stick up just enough. I mean, if you take a look at the height, they're good. They've also got a slightly lifted edge, so they've got the best of both worlds there. No D-pad collapse syndrome there. Really freaking nice. Looking at the side here, this of course is the charge port. That's a micro USB. And up at the top you have a port for expansion or programming. I'm gonna maybe go into this one of these days. I think that would be kind of a cool thing to play with. So I'll probably come back to that, not on this video of course. Here of course is the on-off switch, which I mentioned some of the pitfalls of installing earlier. Down at the bottom is one of the few things I don't like about the device, which is this rather open area that the micro SD card sits in. I'm always afraid I'm going to bump into it. That said, it has not fallen out. It has not had any problems there. It does seem to grip it really well, and I haven't bumped into it. I'm always just afraid I will, so maybe it's just a personal thing, don't know. But all in all, that hardware looks pretty good. Now, if I had pre-planned, which wouldn't be me if I did, I would have that SD card already prepared, but I'm gonna have to do that now. So let's prepare this card for use by the Odroid-Go. The first thing, of course, you're going to need is some way to get that SD card attached to your computer or read by your computer. I use a APLOM adapter, which I've covered elsewhere on this station. You might have it built in already. I don't know, but you know, consider it a learning experience. So once you've got your micro SD card set up, you will see it show up as a drive. And what you want to do is you want to format it. Note, yours might not be drive F. Yours might be D, might be G. I don't know. It really depends on your system. You're going to want to make sure it's FAT32 and just hit start. Make sure that there's nothing on here that you want to keep, because you are going to wipe this out. So don't use something that has all your family pictures on it unless you don't like your family. Okay, so your next step is to open up your browser and go to wiki.odroid.com/odroid_go/make_SD_card. I'll of course put a link in the description down below. What you're going to want to do is scroll to about 3/4 of the way down the page, and you're going to want to download this guy, this skeleton file. And on your hard drive, it'll be called SD_card_0907zip. So then you're going to go down into your downloads. There it is. I'm going to extract all. And I'm kind of lazy, so I'm just going to extract them all right to the root of my Odroid-Go card. Notice how I named it Odroid so I wouldn't get lost. There we go. Select it and extract. Alright, so this will make 2 folders, Odroid and ROMs. What we want here is the ROMs folder, and as you can see, it has all the different folders set up for you, and you start dragging your ROMs into this folder. Note that it does not take zipped ROMs, so you're going to want to make sure that they're unzipped before you put them in here. In case you're wondering, Atari 2600, 7800, Colecovision, Gameboy, Game Boy Color, Game Gear, Woot, NES, and Sega Master System. Okay, so real quick, we're going to talk about a couple of topics. The first thing is getting Colecovision ROMs to work. It does not work by default with the default ROM set. You can download the regular ROM set, that isn't the problem. What happens is it doesn't read in the BIOS file. So you need to rename the Colecovision BIOS file to BIOS, all capital letters, BIOS.COL. And then it will find the Colecovision BIOS and you can load Colecovision games. So there's issue number 1. Issue number 2 is getting these 2600 and 7800 games to work. That's a little bit different. You go into Odroid firmware, and I had to add the Pro System and Stella firmwares, and I'll link to those down below. Stella, of course, is the Atari 2600 emulator, and Pro System is the Atari 7800 emulator. You'll need to hit B to load those. I'll show you that later.
Retro Rob plays everything.
Alright, to get into the Atari emulators or any other extras you've installed in the firmware folder, you hit B and power it up, and boom, there's a menu. You can select it from here, just hit A and then hit start, and you'll be in there. I'm not going to show these in this particular video, but they do work fairly well. They're not perfect, but okay. I might do another video specializing on those in the future. Okay, hit A and hit start. And now it will go to the main screen. Oh, it's going to take a while. Here we are on the main menu of the Odroid-Go. Up on the top right, you can see your battery level. On the top left, you can see the volume level. You can control volume with this button right here. I'll show you that in a minute. You can, of course, play Nintendo, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Sega Master System, Game Gear, Colecovision, and Atari 2600 and 7800 games. There is a Commodore 64 emulator coming pretty soon, I hear. I was going to go play with it. I might do a video on that in the future. Also, you can play Doom on this sucker, although there is no sound and no save yet. But it looks pretty good. So I might show that in another video as well. Let's just hit the A button so we can get into Nintendo. And I'm going to hit 1943. Okay, first thing I want to show you is volume. It gets really loud. I mean, really freaking loud. But because the speaker's up on the front, it's pretty clear. It doesn't sound bad. But man, is it loud. So let's stop that and hit start. And start. And we'll just randomly do this. There we go. What I want to show you is that the D-pad works really well. We probably could have guessed that because of the center pole that's in the D-pad when I was putting it together, but it's nice to confirm that it does work excellently. You see how smooth my circles are? That is a good sign for a D-pad. Buttons are working really well, no problems there either. Now I'm going to show you something else pretty interesting. Hold on a second. Back up. I'm going to turn this off. Now I'm going to turn it back on. Look at that. It comes back to the game that I left on. That is pretty cool. Now if I want to go back to the main menu, I hit this button. And then I can hit B to get out of Nintendo, and then I can go on to Game Boy. One more thing I wanted to show you. This ROM froze up immediately on loading. So that's a problem because if I turn it off and turn it back on, it's going to load that ROM again and freeze up again. To get out of that, turn the device off, press the menu button, and turn the device back on. Now I'm out of there. Very important to know that. The Game Boy is a really freaking amazing machine if you think about it. It bridges that gap between early 8-bit and late 8-bit gaming, and even spends a little bit of time into the early 16-bit era. Just a wide, amazing variety of games. This, of course, is Miner 2049er, which is an early 8-bit game, and it's quite a bit of fun. The Odroid-Go does a fabulous job of running this. Of course, as always, if you're looking for a specific game, go check out the description below, and I've got a link to the list of games that work well on the Odroid-Go. Alright, so here we have a side-scrolling version of Bomberman on the Game Boy Color. How weird is that? Anyway, the Game Boy Color, much like the Game Boy, has a lot of its own unique spins on classic games, and this thing seems to run it just fine for the most part. I've played a few games on here and found that they all seem to work. Again, no emulation is perfect. There's always something that you're not going to like about it, but I think this does a really good job, especially when I've seen supposedly more powerful devices really kind of choke on the Game Boy Color. It really does cause many of these types of devices a lot of pain. So, nice to see it running well here. What a weird game, though. Here we have Alex Kidd, one of Sega's early mascots, and this is the Sega Master System. And this is a great game system. I had one of these back in the day. In fact, I still have one, but when it came out, I got one of these really cheap on clearance and really liked the game system. But of course, all my friends had Nintendos and felt like I was kind of an outcast there. Whoa. Ouch! Anyway, it does seem to run these pretty well. I mean, it does a good job. I haven't seen a whole lot of game systems that have choked on the Master System, so I mean, it's not like it's any big deal, but it's nice that they added it. Oh, really? If you put a whole lot of money into a Game Gear, you can get the screen to look like this. Or you can just buy this sucker for 40 bucks. That said, I think the sound is a little bit fuzzy on this particular game, but it really does make Game Gear games look great. And they were great looking. They were just kind of let down by that kind of shoddy screen. This reminds me that I might actually have to do that mod on my Game Gear. I did do the backlight mod just to get better battery life, but looking at this, I think I want to see that really great color like I have here. Nice job. Alright, so here we are looking at H.E.R.O for the Colecovision on the Odroid-Go. This is one of my favorite versions of this game. I did play the Atari 2600 version a whole lot back in the day, but I always really wanted the Colecovision version. I think the 64 version's pretty good too, but this just looks so good. And with this D-pad, it controls a lot better than the original where you had to kind of fight the controls. Just gotta move fast. This bomb goes off really quick. Anyway, Colecovision games really have aged well, I think. And this is a great way to play them. Maybe not for me, because I kind of suck at this game. Alright, let's go on to the verdict. So what's the verdict on this guy? Construction quality is quite good. There appears to have been a lot of thought in the engineering of it. It plays well. The sound system works pretty darn well thanks to them putting the speaker up in the front. The screen is nice and clear. Doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart at all anytime soon. I like the fact that I got to assemble it. That adds a little bit of the fun. I mean, there's nothing dangerous in the building of this thing. It's a really simple build. If you can handle Legos, you can handle doing this thing. I like the fact that they are continuing to work on emulators and software for this thing. Again, I think I mentioned that they've got a version of Doom running. There's also a Spectrum emulator for this thing. So just a whole lot you're going to be able to do with this now and in the future. It was, I think, right around $50 delivered, and at that price I am very happy to give this thing a big thumbs up. Definitely, if you can find it and you got the money to blow, this is just worth having some fun with. I want to thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up, subscribe for more, and if you have any suggestions on other videos you want me to do on the Odroid-Go, feel free to throw them down below in the comments and I'll try and get to them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a couple days. What the heck is this? Well, it's the arcade box, and I'm going to be covering this really soon on this station, so if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe so when this video drops you can see it.